Get this, adults with financial literacy skills have 82% more wealth than those who don't. From swimming lessons to piano classes, us parents invest in so many things to enrich our kids' lives. But are we investing in their future financial success? With Greenlight, you can teach your kids financial literacy skills like earning, saving, and investing. And this investment costs less than that after-school treat. Start prioritizing their financial education and future today with a risk-free trial at greenlight.com/Wondery. Greenlight.com/Wondery.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile with a message for everyone paying big wireless way too much. Please, for the love of everything good in this world, stop. With Mint, you can get premium wireless for just $15 a month. Of course, if you enjoy overpaying, no judgments, but that's weird. Okay, one judgment. Anyway, give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only. Then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
This is a mini meditation guided by Bombas. Repeat after me. I'm comfy, comfy. I'm cozy, cozy. I have 0 blisters on my toes, blisters. And that's because I wear Bombas, the softest socks, underwear, and t-shirts that give back. One purchased equals one donated. Now go to bombas.com/Wondery and use code WONDERY for 20% off your first purchase. That's BOMBAS.com/Wondery and use code WONDERY at checkout.
For weeks now, New Jersey residents have been plagued by unexplained drones flying overhead.
Is there intelligent alien life? And if so, has the government been covering it up?
All right, UFO sightings the military can't explain. Congressional hearings, Pentagon whistleblower. What does it all mean?
What does it all mean? We are here to try and figure it all out with our new Ancient Aliens podcast. There is a doorway in the universe. Beyond it is the promise of truth. It demands we question everything we have ever been taught. The evidence is all around us. The future is right before our eyes. We are not alone. We have never been alone. Listen to the Ancient Aliens podcast, available wherever you get your podcasts.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 414 of the True Crime All the Time Unsolved podcast. I'm Mike Ferguson, and with me, as always, is my partner in true crime, Mike Gibson. Gibby, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing okay. How about you?
I'm doing great. Having a good week.
Good.
Can't always say that, but this week I can.
This week you're having a good one.
I am.
All right.
Let's hope it continues. Let's go ahead and do our Patreon shout-outs. We had KYW.
What's up, W?
Robert Leonard.
Hey, Robert.
Kathleen Matthews.
Hey, thanks, Kathleen.
Stephen Negley.
There's Stephen.
Lona Vandenhever.
Oh, the Vandenhever.
Yeah. Kazadine.
Hey, Dean.
Jennifer Phillips jumped out to her highest level.
Well, that's awesome. Thanks, Phillips.
And last but not least, Katrina Fox.
There's good old Katrina.
And then if we go back into the vault, this week we selected Veronica Wolf.
Veronica.
How do you say it?
Veronica.
How do you say the last name?
Wolf.
Wolf. We also had a great PayPal donation from Deanne Padilla.
Hey, thanks, Deanne.
So we appreciate all the support that we get. We have an episode out right now on True Crime All the Time where we're talking about Richard Merritt. And there was so much in the research that we actually had to break it into 2 parts. You know, he was a well-known, successful attorney in Georgia who was caught stealing hundreds of thousands of dollars from clients. But right before going to serve his prison time, he cut his GPS ankle monitor and went on the run and did more horrible things.
He did.
So check it out. It's a good episode.
It is a really good episode.
All right, buddy. Are you ready to get into this episode of True Crime All the Time Unsolved?
I am, but also Happy Mother's Day.
Oh, yeah. I forgot about that. I said that on TCAP, but yeah. Happy Mother's Day to all you mothers out there. So on this episode, we're talking about the disappearance of Jennifer Pandos. 15-year-old Jennifer Pandos disappeared from her home in Williamsburg, Virginia. One night in February 1987, the police have looked at multiple people over the years, but there's never been enough evidence to charge anyone. Jennifer Lynn Pandos was born on October 29th, 1971. Her parents, Margie and Ronald, described her as a friendly, responsible, and outgoing girl. Her friends described her similarly and said she was caring towards the kids in school who didn't seem to fit in.
That's a special person there because at least when I grew up, there was always those kids that didn't fit in, and most of the kids would just look the other way.
Or if they didn't look the other way, they were actively trying to do something to them.
Yeah, like bullies.
Yeah, so it's great when people stand up for individuals who either don't fit in or can't protect themselves against the bullies. Margie later said in a documentary interview, her disposition was like most 15-year-olds, but her highs were higher and her lows were lower. Okay, that sounds like my girls exactly.
Yeah.
15 years old, tough time.
It is.
For most kids, right? You're going through a lot at about 15, 16 years old. And I think my girls were like that as well. Their highs were really high, but their lows were really low.
It's an emotional time.
Yeah, it is. Margie and Ron met when he was a department manager and she was a head cashier at an unspecified business. They got married and Ron joined the military. Stephen was born when Ron was stationed in Savannah. Margie moved there when Stephen was a month old. In 1968, Ron was called to go to Vietnam. Ron never talked to Margie about what happened and what he saw there. He earned a Bronze Star for his service, but she didn't know what it was for. He suffered PTSD from his time over there.
And in the past, I worked with a few guys that served in Vietnam, and they definitely did not talk about it.
Yeah, I was going to say that about my uncle who served over there. I tried to get him to talk about it a number of times, and he just didn't want to.
Yeah.
I think, Gibbs, it messed a lot of guys up.
I think so.
Who were over there. It really did. When Ron returned from deployment, he got a degree in accounting. Jennifer was born a few years later. Jennifer, her brother Stephen, and her parents lived in Williamsburg, Virginia, in a gated community called Kings Mill. All right, sounds nice.
Yeah, nice little gated community.
According to Stephen, they grew up in a tense household. Ron had a short temper and could be violent. Stephen said that Ron hit, kicked, and choked him. Jennifer would fight back, but Stephen didn't. Margie acknowledged that Stephen and Ron always had a strained relationship.
Doesn't make for a nice, warm, and cozy home, does it?
No, it doesn't sound good when your dad is hitting, kicking, and choking you. And I wonder if Ron, always had a short temper or if some of that developed, during his time over in Vietnam.
I wouldn't be surprised if it was the latter.
Stephen and Jennifer were not close. Stephen recalled that he was always out doing something, and Jennifer spent weekends away from home. He thinks that they both stayed away as much as they could because they just didn't feel safe.
It's kind of a shame.
It is. And again, it doesn't sound like a happy, healthy, safe environment. I could imagine that anybody in that situation would go out of their way to try to find something to do outside the home. Who wants to take the chance that there's going to be a blow up?
Yeah.
At the time of her disappearance, Jennifer was a sophomore in high school. In 1986, she started dating a boy named Tony Tobler, who was 2 years older. Tony was new at school and received a lot of attention from girls. At first, he dated Jennifer's longtime friend, Corey. Tony and Jennifer dated when he and Corey were on a break. So there's two things there for me. It was always the new guy who came from a different school, who girls seemed to gravitate towards. I remember that in high school. Maybe it's because they had known the rest of us for many, many years, right? I went to a small school. We all knew each other. But here you have this guy who nobody knows. He's Mr. Mysterious.
Yeah.
And the girls seem to flock to him.
Intriguing.
But I also thought it was strange that Jennifer started dating Tony when Tony and Jennifer's best friend were on a break. This sounds like a Ross Rachel situation here.
Yeah. And you wonder if it was like they used to be friends.
Right. That seems like something that would cause you to be ex-friends. Jennifer became pregnant in the summer of 1986, and she and Tony decided she should get an abortion. Her parents were shocked by the pregnancy, and her father, Ron, was particularly upset. He didn't want Jennifer to see Tony anymore. I could understand why maybe her parents were shocked by the pregnancy. She was very young.
She was.
She must have only been about 14 years old at this point in time. According to a friend of Jennifer's, things were tense in the household, and Ron was stricter about monitoring her. Tony recalled that Jennifer's parents disliked him, and he thought Ron was controlling over the whole family.
I'm thinking the parents didn't like you, Tony, because you got their baby girl pregnant.
Yeah, I'm sure that had something to do with it. Maybe they didn't like him before that, but even if that was true, they probably sure didn't like him afterwards.
And they probably didn't like him because he always talked about himself third person.
Tony did this, Tony did that.
Yeah.
Jennifer and Tony broke up soon after she had the abortion. Tony got back together with Jennifer's friend, Corey. And I know there's a lot of strange dynamics in high school, but this is a strange one.
It's a little love triangle kind of thing going on there, right?
Corey said in a later interview that Jennifer was torn up about the breakup, but she seemed fine by the time she got back together with Tony. However, Jennifer's friend Sharon said that she was having a hard time coping with the fact that Corey and Tony were together, and Jennifer would do things to get Tony's attention. Again, strange dynamic.
Sure. Do you ever have feelings for one of your friends' girlfriends?
I'm sure I did. I had a lot of feelings back in high school.
Yeah.
Some of which I don't share. I don't care to go into detail about.
Okay. I guess we hit that spot.
But, you just think about if this was you and you got, your best friend, he's dating a girl, they break up. You start dating her and then you break up and she goes back to your best friend. That would be just a weird situation.
I don't know if we'd be friends anymore.
Well, I think it would be hard to maintain the friendship.
Yeah. Certainly be hard to trust them together when you're not with them. If she's your girlfriend now, but then she's hanging out with him when you're not there. You're like, I don't know. It's too sketchy.
It's too close for comfort.
Yeah.
Margie could tell Jennifer was going through a hard time. At one point, Jennifer told her mom she didn't want to be crazy. Margie said that either Jennifer didn't feel ready to get help or she hadn't found the right person for her to talk to yet. Jennifer did run away from home once before she disappeared. However, very few details were provided in the Burden of Proof documentary. And we're going to be talking about this documentary a lot. It's a really good one on this case. According to Margie, February 9th, 1987 seemed like a normal night in their house. Margie went into Jennifer's room to ask her to call her grandmother and clean the room. Jennifer seemed agreeable to this.
To clean her room? How many times did you have that conversation with your girls?
A lot. And the amount of times that it went seamlessly, not many.
Yeah.
Between 9 and 10 p.m., Jennifer spoke on the phone with her friend, Sharon Rose Stewart. According to Sharon, Jennifer's father, Ron, opened the door during their conversation and told her to get off the phone. Jennifer said okay, but continued talking. Okay, again, it sounds in line with my experience with a 15-year-old. I mean, it's the kind of things that you run into. But also, we are talking about 1987, landlines, and the fact that you could probably tie up the whole household back then.
Oh, yeah, you could.
Ron came in a couple of more times. The last time he entered the room, he shouted at Jennifer and used a curse word. But Sharon couldn't recall exactly what he said to tell her to get off the phone.
Get off that damn phone. That's what I would have probably said.
Well, Sharon said she'd never heard Ron use this tone before. She remembered that in her response, Jen called him Ronald. She told Sharon she'd see her tomorrow before hanging up. Okay, using his full name sounds like something, a teenager would do to be sassy.
Right. Okay, Ronald. Your kids ever call you Michael?
No.
Yeah, that probably would not go over well.
It wouldn't. According to Margie, Jennifer's normal routine before school involved her getting up at 6 a.m. and taking a shower. Margie woke up around that time on the morning of February 10th, 1987. She noticed that she didn't hear the shower running and assumed that Jennifer overslept. She went to check on her and was concerned when she realized the bedroom door was locked. Jennifer didn't normally do this. Margie and Ron forced open the door and saw that Jennifer was gone. Her coat and purse were also missing. Margie later noticed that the window blinds were bent in a way that suggested someone was looking out through them. On the edge of the bed, they found a mysterious note that read, "Mr. and Mrs. Pandos, your daughter is with me. She is fine. She is having some problems, though. She needs some time away from this place. 3 to 5 days max. She is like a daughter to me, and I'm like a dad to her. Here are some of Jennifer's quotes. I'm fine. I just need time to think. Both of you, please go to work tomorrow, because I will try to call you. I won't call at home, only at one of y'all's work. Cancel my doctor's appointment on Friday. Please put my money you owe me into my bank account. Do not call the police. I can easily find out if you do. And if you do, I may never come back home. Don't tell my friends about this. Just tell them I'm sick. Please do what I've asked."
Okay.
Man, I have no idea what my reaction would be if I was in this situation. I know I'd be freaking out, though.
Why would your daughter say what she said? And was it your daughter that said all that?
Well, and who is this man who is like a dad to your daughter that you don't know about?
Yeah, that you're now learning about.
And it doesn't sound to me, back to your point, like the words of a 15-year-old. Most 15-year-olds that I know, well, let's just say my daughters, because I don't know a lot of 15-year-olds, but they don't care a lot about their doctor's appointments and would miss most of them if my wife didn't remind them.
That is true.
So to have that frame of mind to say, please cancel my doctor's appointment, that doesn't sound like a teenager to me. Don't call the police. I can easily find out if you do.
Yeah, that doesn't sound like a...
That sounds like a terrorist, right? Something a terrorist would say. Or a kidnapper. My wife and I are trying to eat healthier, but that's not easy. You're standing in the grocery store aisle. It's very hard to understand the confusing nutrition labels. This is why I love Thrive Market, my go-to online grocery store for getting all of my healthy essentials delivered, and I don't even have to leave my couch. Thrive Market is the no-junk online grocery store that bans over 1,000 harmful ingredients. Their team of product researchers do the hard work for me and my family, so I don't have to spend hours reading labels, and they have all the hard-to-find brands at the best prices. My wife and I found these potato crisps from the Good Crisp Company, sour cream and onion. We love them. And finding better options like that is easy with Thrive Market's Healthy Swap Scanner. You just scan a product, and it instantly recommends healthier swaps. And they have so many on-site filters that make it simple to shop by the needs of everyone in your family. Ready to make the switch? Go to thrivemarket.com/TCATU for 35% off your first order, plus a free $60 gift. That's THRIVE market.com/TCATTU. thrivemarket.com/TCATU. Homes.com knows that when it comes to home shopping, it's never just about the house or condo. It's about the home. And what makes a home is more than just the house or property. It's the location and the neighborhood. If you have kids, it's also schools, nearby parks, and transportation options. That's why Homes.com goes above and beyond to bring home shoppers the in-depth information they need to find the right home. And when I say in-depth, I'm talking deep. Each listing features comprehensive information about the neighborhood, complete with a video guide. They also have details about local schools with test scores, state rankings, and student-to-teacher ratio. They even have an agent directory with the sales history of each agent. So when it comes to finding a home, not just a house, this is everything you need to know, all in one place. Homes.com. We've done your homework. Margie noted that they lived in a townhome that backed up to a pond. If the person who took Jennifer with them was driving, they would have to go through the security gate. However, if Jennifer left on foot, she could have been picked up somewhere along the highway.
Or she could have walked from the house with whoever this person was back out towards the highway.
Yeah, that's a possibility as well.
Yeah.
Margie and Ron decided to go to work the next day, as the note instructed, and wait to see if Jennifer would call them. They did not call the police. And I think that would be a tough decision to wrestle with.
It would be really hard. I know you want to try to do what you believe your daughter is telling you is her on what she's telling you to do, but I just don't know. I mean, today, I think the parents would do something different. Back then, maybe you would have played along a little bit.
Maybe it's 1987. We know a lot more today, I think, about crimes and, there's so many crime shows. There wasn't all that many back then.
No.
Not like the proliferation that we have today. When Jennifer didn't come to school, her friend Sharon called the house. Margie told her Jennifer was sick. Sharon called again when Jennifer didn't show up for the second day in a row. This time, Margie said she was out with her dad. So again, they're following the letter and what they believe are Jennifer's instructions. But they are lying to different people about what's going on.
And by not telling anybody at this point, what does that do? It's given whoever has her a head start.
Well, when they talk about the first 48 hours, okay, well, if you're not calling the police for a few days, yeah, you're right. You're giving a possible captor a head start on, getting away. You're also allowing precious time to go by before police can start their investigation. Think about all the things that could happen, right? It could rain. Maybe there were footprints that now are no longer there because they got washed away. Just things like that.
And I think today, as a parent, how you would be perceived in the media and social media about delaying, even if you thought it was the right thing to do, it's not going to come off very well.
Well, you're going to be blamed no matter what.
Yeah.
That's just the way social media works.
Sure.
No matter what you do, somebody's going to say something negative. But I do agree. I think there's a lot of people who would have something to say about this delay in reporting, her missing. After 3 days with no word from Jennifer, her parents did report her missing. They showed the note to the police. Investigators theorized that Jennifer, who was left-handed, wrote the note with her right hand because the penmanship was awkward. They believed Jennifer ran away, and they had no reason to suspect foul play at that time.
Well, we know in the 70s, even the 80s, they believed a lot of kids ran away.
They did. Now, I did think it was a little strange that they immediately went to, well, she must have written it with her other hand, as opposed to maybe somebody else wrote the note.
True, yeah.
It seemed like Jennifer needed some time away because she was going through a hard time because of the breakup with Tony, according to her friends. Authorities did several interviews with Tony and did not consider him a person of interest at that time. And I don't know what the motive for Tony would have been.
Yeah, I mean, they'd broken up. She wasn't pregnant. And
he's dating her friend.
Yeah.
According to Margie, the police thought Jennifer would turn up eventually. She didn't feel like they were doing much to find her. And unfortunately, like you said, Gibbs, in the 70s and 80s, a lot of people had those same thoughts.
Yeah.
That the police didn't take some of these situations where, kids were missing very seriously.
Well, and they're believing that she's a runaway at this point, so.
Other than the note, there was no evidence leading the police to Jennifer, and her case pretty quickly went cold. Ron and Margie divorced in the late 1990s. Ron sold his accounting practice and moved to Texas. Margie moved to Charlotte, North Carolina.
You know, we've covered, I don't know, hundreds of cases of disappearances.
Yeah.
And probably one of the reoccurring themes is that at least somebody in that family stays where they disappeared from. They don't leave the area. Not saying that what they're doing is wrong. I'm just saying it's
I get
different
you.
than what we typically would see.
Yeah, a lot of people don't want to move out of that house. They don't want to change their phone number. They want that person who is missing to be able to get a hold of them. Yeah. Now, it doesn't surprise me that they got divorced, because this type of thing can be a catalyst for divorce. We see that a lot. And maybe each of them thought, it's just too painful to live in this house, to even live in this area. I don't know. As he got older, Stephen got more involved with his sister's case and seeking justice for Jennifer. He came to believe his father, Ron, was involved. Okay, that must be a hard revelation.
It would be tough to have thoughts about.
To start to believe that your father had something to do with your sister's disappearance.
Yeah.
Sergeant Wendy Reed worked the case from 2006 to 2009. She learned that the original case file had gone missing. Without it, they didn't know when the family reported the crime or even who was on the suspect list. So she had to start the investigation from scratch.
Makes you wonder what the heck happened to the file.
Well, I think a lot of files disappeared, back in the day, unfortunately.
I mean, I've heard people say it's good to put fresh eyes on something, but this is like starting from scratch.
Yeah, which is much different than having a different person look over the evidence. You're starting from scratch years later when people's memories are not going to be as good. Sergeant Reed spoke to Jennifer's friends to get to know more about her. She talked to Corey Tobler, who later married Tony Tobler. Corey brought up Kerry Hendricks, an older man Jennifer babysat for. She claimed that he would give the teens alcohol.
Oh, one of those guys.
When Sergeant Reed looked into Kerry's background, she saw convictions for violent crimes against women. In March 1990, he was charged with attempt to commit rape and felony kidnapping. But she wasn't able to locate him for an interview. Does sound like somebody you would really want to talk to, though.
Yeah, I mean, he should be at least a person of interest.
Well, you go back to the note. There's an older man mentioned in the note saying, this guy is like a father to Jennifer. Who is this man?
Maybe it was this guy.
Sergeant Reed spoke to Margie, who thought Tony Tobler was involved, although she said she had never seen him behave violently towards Jennifer. And I don't know that this is out of the ordinary, right? There are different people who are going to have their own favorite suspects, for the lack of a better word, or people who they thought might be involved.
Yeah. He was the last person she had a relationship with, so.
Yeah, as far as we know, that is true. But I still go back to what would his motive be? Because it does seem like at that point, he had kind of moved on.
Yeah.
He was dating Corey again. They would later get married. What would his motive be for wanting to harm Jennifer? Now, maybe she knew something about him. Maybe she threatened to break up his relationship with Corey. We don't know. In March 2007, when filling out a questionnaire, Margie informed Sergeant Reed that she had the original note found in Jennifer's bedroom.
There's a plus.
Yeah, because you would think that would have been in the case file. This was Sergeant Reed's first time reading it. She was shocked that Margie had been in possession of the original note all these years. The investigator before her said the original note was in the missing case file, and he had never given that to the family. Okay, so that's kind of mysterious there. Either he's wrong, or that case file made its way outside of the police station into the hands of somebody in the family.
Yeah. If that's the case, how did that happen?
During this same conversation with Sergeant Reed, Margie said she last saw Jennifer on February 9th, and she and Ron waited until February 13th to report her missing. Ron claimed that he hung up flyers and spoke to Jennifer's friends But Sergeant Reed didn't find any of Jennifer's friends who could recall seeing flyers or speaking to Ron.
And you would think you would recall that, right? It's a pretty traumatic event, in your high school years. I think you would remember that.
Yeah, you're not going to remember a lot of things.
Right.
But those types of events, because they are traumatic, they are so important, the details around it might get, seared into your brain a lot more than innocuous stuff would.
Yeah.
Ron also said he went to Pennsylvania to tell Jennifer's grandmother that she ran away. However, family in Pennsylvania would later dispute this and say they didn't find out Jennifer was missing for years.
That's a problem.
Well, at the very least, things aren't looking great for Ron, right?
Why lie about that stuff?
Yeah, it seems like strange stuff to lie about. But if he is lying, then what does that mean? Why is he doing it? Is he trying to cover something up? Sergeant Reed also noticed that at one point, the parents said they stayed home from work on February 10th. And at other points, they said they both went to work.
I mean, this is many years later.
It is.
So you could have a little memory lapse?
Yeah, you could. But again, you think this is such an important event in your life that
True.
You'd probably remember the details pretty well. Sergeant Reed asked Margie why she went to work, and she said she did it because the note instructed her to. However, she didn't put money into Jennifer's bank account as the note instructed.
So if you're going to do what the note says to do, why wouldn't you do everything?
Yeah, you'd have to question that. Because of those conflicting stories, Sergeant Reed suspected the parents knew more than they were saying. And I could understand why, the sergeant would think that. There are some inconsistencies here. There are some things that just don't make a lot of sense.
You went to work, you didn't go to work. You told the family in Pennsylvania, you didn't tell the family in Pennsylvania. Did you do flyers and talk to the friends? Or, you're saying you did, they're saying you didn't. I mean, it's just a lot of, like you said, inconsistency.
Yeah. There's a lot of the stuff they're saying is not being corroborated. Jennifer's note was written on paper from a notebook Jennifer used to write back and forth with her friend Carrie. Jennifer would write an entry, give it to Carrie, and she would write a response. All the good old days when you just had to write stuff on paper.
Oh, yeah.
Couldn't just text back and forth, which is what kids would do today.
Remember passing notes and stuff like that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Remember the ones that you had to do the fold and fold them in and out a bunch of times to get to the right thing or something? I don't even know what you call those.
Yeah, I remember a lot of the girls did those.
Yeah.
You were doing them?
No, I just remember them. Margie provided this notebook to Sergeant Reed as well. In one of the entries, Jennifer wrote, "You may not know this, but there are great problems among my family. It just doesn't seem that way. The tension in my family is so great, I don't let many people know how I feel deep inside because I don't care what happens to my family. We were never a family, but my parents think they can make us one big happy family. I let them think it's working, but it isn't, and it never will."
It's kind of telling right there.
Yeah, I mean, it tells a lot. It also might lead someone to think, well, maybe she did leave voluntarily because she wasn't happy. Jennifer made her last entry in the notebook on February 9th, 1987, but there was nothing there to indicate she was contemplating running away.
Well, besides the fact she just wasn't happy with her family.
Other than that, there wasn't. In August 2007, Jennifer's note was sent for handwriting analysis. Jennifer, Ron, and another individual were ruled out, but Margie was not eliminated.
Now, can you have, I'm not sure, but I thought sometimes there's people within your family that can have similar handwritings. And I don't know if that's a mom-daughter thing or not.
Yeah, it's not something I'm aware of. Like you're saying it could be hereditary. I've never heard of that.
No. Okay.
I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying I've never heard of it. Sergeant Jeff Valines also worked Jennifer's cold case from 2005 to 2009. He noted that Margie also turned over Jennifer's dental records, which the dentist claimed were turned over to the police. This meant Margie had two pieces of evidence that were supposed to be in police custody.
So now you have to wonder, was Margie the person that somehow got her hand on that missing file?
I mean, there's a lot of things to be questioned here, right? There's no doubt about it. Sergeant Valines called the Commonwealth Attorney's Office and said he believed he had enough probable cause to get a search warrant for Margie's house, but he was denied.
I mean, she does have two key pieces of evidence.
Sergeant Valines developed his own theory about what happened to the original case file, which he later shared with a private investigator. Ron Pandos was golf buddies with the chief of security at Kings Mill, the gated community where the family lived. The chief of security's wife was the secretary for the local police department. He speculated that arrangements were allegedly made for her to take the case file and give it to Ron so he could see what the police had on him.
Well, I'm pretty sure it was not a thing you could do, is take a case file and walk it out of the building and give it to somebody that may be a person of interest.
Or anybody outside of law enforcement. Yeah, I think that was a big no-no. But, this is interesting because you have people who are kind of leaning towards Margie, maybe the handwriting. Why does she have some of this stuff? You also have people leaning towards Ron as potentially getting the case file because he wanted to know what the police had on him.
Why would he want to know that if he didn't do anything wrong?
Well, I don't think he would. I think that's what people are thinking, right? You would only want that if you had something to do with her disappearance.
And you have to be a pretty good friend with Ron if you're willing to put your wife's career at risk.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, that's a fireable offense for sure. In 2008, retired Virginia State Police profiler Kenneth Morris read Jennifer's letter and created the profile. He wrote in his report, "It is my opinion that Jennifer had nothing to do with the creation of the letter. The inclusion of personal information in the letter suggests the writer had an extremely close relationship to Jennifer. It can thereby be inferred that the letter is an instrument created to facilitate a staged crime scene. Based on this premise, your most plausible offender would be one or both of the parents."
It's a big statement.
It is, but just look at all of the things that are coming out. They don't make the parents look great. Now, that doesn't mean that either one of them had something to do with it, but you'd have to say the inconsistencies, the thought that you have things that you shouldn't have, that were supposed to be in a police file that is missing, none of it makes you look good.
And you know what reporting her missing so many days later does for the parents, if that's true? It allows them time to clean up, get their story right, and put some distance between her and them.
And I'm sure that's part of what people look at. Why would you really wait 4 days? Stephen visited Margie on Christmas Day 2008 and learned his father was in jail on felony charges. Ron was incarcerated in Oklahoma after he opened 6 accounts for NFL players and embezzled over $50,000. He pleaded guilty and violated probation by possessing firearms.
So not a good guy, but we don't know if that means anything as far as
Jennifer's disappearance. Yeah. According to Stephen, it was soon after he learned this that Sergeant Wendy Reed asked Margie if she would answer some questions. Margie asked Stephen to go with her. He noticed that Margie hesitated when Sergeant Reed asked her to take a polygraph. According to him, this was the first really weird moment for him. Now, we talked about polygraphs before. I don't know that I would be super enthused to take one, knowing everything we know about polygraphs. But if my daughter disappeared, that might change my opinion.
Yeah. But if you go to the police station and they ask you to take a polygraph and you seem hesitant, I'm sure whoever's with you is going to be thinking, wait, why are you hesitant about taking that?
Well, especially your son.
Yeah.
You're looking at your mom saying, why would you not want to take that?
Right.
In 2008, Sergeant Reed was given permission to bring cadaver dogs to the townhome where the family once lived the dog showed interest in the crawl space. The police dug several holes but did not find remains. So again, not sure what that means. It could possibly mean that a body was stored there for some period of time and then later moved. Margie took her polygraph exam in 2009 and failed. Okay, that's probably why she didn't want to take it.
Yeah.
After that, Stephen learned that when his parents moved away from Williamsburg, they did not provide updated contact information for over 2 years. And it's at this point when Stephen started to think that they were possibly involved. Specifically, he believed Ron killed Jennifer and threatened Margie into writing this suspicious note.
So look, the mom fails the polygraph. If you move away from where your daughter went missing and you didn't provide forwarding information, contact information, either you're a really lousy parent or you know where she's at and you're not concerned because you know she's never coming back because you had something to do with it.
Yeah, we talked about, how many parents would want to leave. But if you did leave, at the very least, you would update the police, right? Where you're at, your phone number. You'd probably still be calling them to check in on the progress. And when you don't do stuff like that, it really paints you in a negative light.
It does. When I think about his scenario, it aligns with that possibility.
Yeah. No, it does. The police asked Margie where she thought Jennifer could be. She told them in the river, in the pond, or on the railroad track. But she doesn't know who put Jennifer there.
Okay, that's a strange way to word something.
Well, it's very strange because if you don't know and you have no idea what happened to your daughter, you say, I don't know. Why would you say in the river, in the pond, or on the railroad track, but I don't know who put her there?
Obviously, you wouldn't know who put her there because if you did, you would have told us. Or, and you don't want to tell us because it was you or your husband.
And why these 3 places? Is she just speculating that these are places that she could be? They sound pretty specific.
Yeah. I was like, okay, did you say the first one was actually where she's at and you wanted to kind of muddy it a little bit and threw in the pond and the railroad track after the fact?
Stephen called Margie's sisters to tell them what was going on. The family traveled to Charlotte to confront Margie, and they weren't happy with her story. Her sister, Mildred Roberts, claimed that when pressed, Margie told them, I excused myself from the situation.
What does that even mean?
I have no idea. She recalled that Jenny had been gone a month. When Margie called her to tell her she was missing, Margie wasn't upset or hysterical. She only asked if Mildred had seen Jenny.
Your kid's been gone for a month.
And you don't call your family until that much time passes.
And you're calm about it. Doesn't look good.
On August 19, 2009, Ronald took a polygraph in prison. He was asked if he caused Jennifer's disappearance. He said no, but the results indicated deception. Ron then started to draw a map of their old neighborhood. He put an X in the woods and began to say he was sorry for what happened. He said that if the police could get a plane, he would take them to Jennifer's body. He then changed his mind and said he didn't know what happened to her. I mean, this is the strangest actions from parents of a missing person that I think we've ever covered or I've ever heard of.
Either, again, you're a piece of shit. If you didn't do it, you're a piece of shit because you're acting like you did it. Who does that to somebody they love? That you act like you killed her. So either you're a big piece of shit or you're a bigger piece of shit because you actually did kill her.
So basically what you're saying is either way, you're a piece of shit.
Yeah, that's my theme. That's my theme this week.
That
piece
is.
Of shit.
Piece of shit. The following day on August 20th, Stephen took Margie to the police station for another interview. The Commonwealth's attorney was willing to give Margie immunity on all charges except for homicide. During that meeting, Sergeant Wendy Reed told Margie she thought she was involved and that she wrote the note. Margie asked to talk to Stephen. They were alone in the room for a few minutes. She told him she thought she needed a lawyer. Stephen urged his mom to tell the truth. He said, the worst thing that's going to happen is, and trailed off. Margie supplied, I go to jail for the rest of my life.
If you go to jail the rest of your life for killing your daughter or having a piece in it, then that's what happens.
But, the attorney is willing to give Margie immunity for everything except for homicide. The problem is homicide is going to be involved.
Sure.
If she comes out and says she has any part in the disappearance of Jennifer, if it results in murder. So that's not really immunity, I think, if you're Margie, because you would still be going away most likely for the most serious crime.
Sure, yeah.
For the rest of the interview, she insisted she didn't have answers as to what happened to Jennifer, and Sergeant Reed was led to believe Margie had more involvement than she originally thought. During the interview, it was revealed to Stephen that there was a period where Sergeant Reed called Margie 7 times and received no response. During that time, Margie was emailing Ron, asking what was going on.
Needing some coaching?
It sounds like it. Margie was asked where Ron might take Jennifer. She thought Ron took Jennifer somewhere on one of his nightly excursions, or when he went to Pennsylvania. Okay, what are these nightly excursions? That sounds ominous.
It does.
Margie later acknowledged she waited a month to tell her parents Jennifer was missing, and she thought Ron went to Pennsylvania. Around that time, she remembered that he took the car and was gone for several days. And I don't think it's any big surprise, but after this interview, Stephen's belief that his parents were involved in Jenny's disappearance was strengthened.
How could it not be?
Right. I mean, listen to what they're saying or what is being revealed. None of it does anything but make these two people seem guilty of something. What, we don't know. But it definitely makes it seem as though they're hiding something.
And what do you think Stephen's feeling? I mean, from the notes that Jennifer had, the family wasn't in a great condition anyway. But to sit there and think that your dad and your mom had something to do with your sister's disappearance, it probably has so many different things running through your head.
Yeah, it's not going to be good. In February 2010, Stephen visited his father in prison. From Ron's perspective, Stephen was asking him to admit to things he didn't do. Stephen said they talked for over 3 hours. According to Stephen, Ron said at one point, hypothetically, I hit her and she fell and hit her head. And you want me to take the fall for this for your mother. I'll take the fall. Stephen thinks this was Ron's way of saying he did it while still being a victim.
Kind of like saying, well, here's how it happened. It wasn't really me, it was your mom, but if you want me, I'll take the blame for it.
Well, it's always interesting when somebody says, this is how it happened hypothetically. Hypothetically speaking, or this is what I think could have happened. Why are you speculating unless you have some type of knowledge? Why are you even hypothesizing that you had something to do with it? In 2014, Stephen petitioned the court to have Jennifer declared legally dead. He subpoenaed the police for her case file. He also reached out to an attorney about whether he could sue his parents for Jennifer's death. And I think that just kind of speaks volumes as to how much he was believing at that point that they were involved.
Yeah. And he wanted them to pay.
In 2015, Stephen started working with filmmaker Cynthia Hill and reporter Andrea Weigel to produce a documentary about his sister's disappearance. The 4-part documentary titled Burden of Proof premiered in 2023. And we talked about it earlier, right? This is a very good documentary. And it's something that if you haven't seen, you should really check it out.
Highly recommend.
During filming, Stephen spoke to his father for the first time in years. He also spoke to his mother several times throughout the filming process. And we talked about this earlier, but a person of interest identified by Sergeant Wendy Reed was Kerry Hendricks, a local man Jennifer babysat for. The documentary team was able to find and interview Kerry. He said that in the mid to late 80s, he was newly divorced and had custody of his son. He most likely saw an ad in the paper for a babysitter, and that was how he hired Jennifer. Carrie denied giving alcohol to minors, as alleged by one of Jennifer's friends. And, I mean, what are you going to say? Yeah, I did all that.
Right.
No, you're going to say you didn't. Now, I'm not saying he did, and I'm just saying there's no real reason to tell the truth at that point.
Yeah, I don't know if somebody's ever going to, like you said, admit to that.
No, there's no reason to. He understands why the police looked at him as a suspect. He explained that he had a troubled childhood and that he and his friends were always suspects when anything happened. When the producers brought up his criminal record, he said he wasn't attempting to kidnap a victim. He was attempting to rob her. He claimed he was struggling with addiction at that time and wanted to snatch her purse.
Well, at least that's his side of the story, and that's his right to lay it out there.
Carrie said Jennifer might have considered him a father figure. She alluded to family problems, but didn't go into detail. She allegedly told him she was thinking about running away, and he cautioned her against it. She stopped coming around, and he learned she was missing. When her father called, he invited Ron over to search his house to prove he wasn't harboring Jennifer.
So that little fact right there makes you wonder a little bit. If Ron had something to do with her disappearance, why would Ron call him and ask him if he's harboring Jennifer? Or is it just a way to help the whole cover-up thing?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. The only reason to do it would be to throw people off, right? If he had something to do with it. During filming, Stephen hired an analyst to re-examine handwriting samples from multiple people, including Carrie Hendricks and Jennifer's former boyfriend, Tony Tobler. The analyst ruled out Ron, Margie, and Carrie Hendricks. She ruled out Tony Tobler as well until she saw one sample that put him, quote, back in the frame to some degree. However, there was not enough evidence to make a conclusive decision. But it's interesting that this analyst was able to rule out Margie.
That's what I thought too.
When the other one was not. But also was able to rule out Carrie. Because, Carrie, this whole thing about, even him saying she might have considered him a father figure. Well, that was in the note. None of that made him look good.
No, because everything aligned to this guy that bought alcohol, was a father figure. They seemed to have some type of relationship, a friendly relationship that she could confide in him. So I think people would run with that.
In March 2018, authorities conducted another cadaver dog search in the Kings Mill community. 3 cadaver dogs showed some interest in the area, but didn't indicate anything was there. And I don't even really know what that means. Showed some interest, but didn't indicate. Around that time, Stephen received news from current lead investigator Jake Rice that the original case file had been found in a box in the property evidence room. This was a big revelation because Rice informed Stephen that his parents were telling the truth when they said they were actively contacting the police and placing ads in the paper after Jennifer went missing. He also said that Jennifer's original note was never in custody because the officer never took it and only took a copy of it. Jennifer's dental records were also found.
Wow. Talking about a 180.
Yeah, because this whole missing case file, the fact that Margie had the original note, Margie was able to produce the dental records. Well, now all of that means nothing.
No.
It's not incriminating in any way.
No. She always had them because they never took it from her.
And the dental records, she must have got another copy of them or something. They weren't the ones from the original case file. After the case file was found, investigators decided to take a new direction with the case and look at other potential suspects besides Margie and Ron. This caused Stephen to question what he had believed for years.
I think it would.
Yeah, I think it would too. It's also a little sad that maybe they did focus so much attention on Margie and Ron. Not to say that they're completely clear in all of this, but they were acting so strangely about a lot of things that you can understand why police were looking at them so hard. But if they didn't have anything to do with it, did they waste a lot of time that could have been spent looking at other people?
Sure.
I guess is what I'm saying.
Why would Ron say what he said to Stephen in the prison? And
why would he say if he had a plane, he could take them to Jennifer's body?
Yeah, it's going to confuse people.
According to Jake Rice, they found names in the case file they hadn't heard before. He did note that Ron and Margie will remain suspects as long as there is no evidence to exonerate them. And I don't know how they couldn't remain suspects based on, the way they've acted, everything they've done. The case file mystery being solved in and of itself, to me, doesn't exclude them. Ron claimed that the police informed him about a potential suspect named Charlie May, who was reportedly a friend of Jennifer's ex-boyfriend, Tony Tobler. Neither Ron nor Stephen knew who Charlie was. The documentary producers located a man named Charles May, who was arrested in 2019 for battery in Florida. In August of that year, the filmmakers learned about a secret grand jury hearing for Jennifer's case in Williamsburg. Charlie May and investigator Jake Rice attended this hearing, as did Tony Tobler. Investigators did not notify the family about the proceedings. And does that seem strange?
I think it does.
Now, I don't know if the family has the right to go to the grand jury hearings.
A lot of times they like to have them, they're secret.
Right. So I don't know if that is out of the ordinary or not. In May 2020, Stephen informed the filmmakers that Jake Rice called him because he heard back from the lab regarding a new handwriting analysis of Jennifer's note. Rice asked if Stephen could provide more handwriting samples from Jennifer and possibly from Tony based on Stephen's understanding of the conversation. It sounded like the lab had 2 samples of Tony's handwriting, and the analysis did not rule him out as the writer of the note. When Stephen asked Rice why they were looking at Tony again, Rice said he found an individual mentioned in the original case file who gave him information that led him to that point. Okay, so they are back on Tony again.
Yeah.
Based on some information that they got from someone. Margie searched her attic and found an entire shoebox of notes exchanged between Jennifer and Tony. In one of Jennifer's letters to Tony, she wrote, "My arms have marks on them, not to mention bruises from where you threw me on the bed. Stop throwing me around like some dumbass whore. Call me back and call me when you say you are. I told you I didn't care if it was 2 a.m. Just call me back when you say you are. Stop lying to me. I know you couldn't stay away from Corey for one freaking day. Now I see why you didn't want me to go to the mall with you, because you had already planned to pick up Corey."
So obviously they have an argument about the relationship and, him wanting to be with her, him wanting to be with Corey, and,
Well, these notes suggested that Tony and Jennifer were still seeing each other in secret in the fall of 1986, even though Tony was dating Jennifer's friend Corey. So, I said earlier, what would be the motive for Tony? And if there was a motive, you would think it would have to have something to do with Corey.
Yeah.
And maybe being exposed, her finding out something he didn't want her to find out about. During his research, Stephen found a note from Tony to Jennifer, dated April 11th, 1986, that said, "I'm glad you called me last night at Charlie's. I'm glad we had that talk that we had. I love you so much." There were multiple notes that referenced Charlie. The documentary producers located Charlie May, and he was willing to talk to them. He met Stephen and the team at a hotel. Charlie claimed that he met Tony one day while he was hanging out on the local railroad tracks, smoking marijuana. Tony was out walking, and they got high together. Once in a while, Tony asked him to get weed or vice versa. Charlie said that they were associates smoking weed. Okay, that's a term I've never heard.
Associates, yeah.
Weed buddies, I guess. Tony introduced him to Jennifer when he saw them at the store. He said she was his girlfriend/fiance. But Charlie said he didn't see Tony for a long time. And then Tony called him out of the blue with a question. Charlie claimed that Tony asked him how he would get rid of a dead body. Charlie told him he'd put the body in a bucket of acid. Tony asked where he would get a barrel. Charlie said he could get it from a construction site. Tony then asked about getting acid. Charlie told him that there was a lot of construction in the area and that builders clean the bricks with acid, so he could get it from a job site. Tony later called him back and said that his, quote, problem was taken care of. Charlie laughed because he thought Tony was joking.
Well, maybe Tony wasn't joking.
And if he wasn't joking, and if what Charlie said was correct, this all makes Tony look really bad.
It does.
I mean, Gibbs, who calls you out of the blue and says, how should I get rid of a dead body? You say, first of all, hang up.
Right.
And then go F yourself because I'm not getting involved in this. According to Charlie, Tony eventually admitted he got in a fight with Jennifer and she fell, hit her head, and died. Charlie still didn't think it was true, so he didn't bring up the conversation during his 1987 police interview. Officers asked him if he helped Jennifer run away, which he denied.
It's kind of a strange thing not to bring up.
It is a very strange thing. I mean, okay, this is a guy that you smoked weed with. He's not your best friend in the world.
Yeah.
And he tells you all this stuff that's incriminating, but you don't think it's real. You think it's a joke. To me, it's at the very least something that investigators would want to hear about so that they could find out for themselves, right? Why did you tell Charlie this stuff?
Yeah. I mean, you told him you had a fight. You said you hit her. She hit her head.
During his review of Jennifer's exchanges with Tony, investigator Jake Rice found a note written by Jennifer on the evening of February 9th, 1987, which shed light on her state of mind just before she disappeared. She wrote, "Tony, hey, what's up? Like, I'm kind of imagining you're at Corey's right now. Anyways, I just wrote to tell you that you should not have lied to me. I'm not yet sure what I'm going to do to hurt you the way that you hurt me by lying to me, but I can assure it won't be pleasant. I think I'm going to do you a very, very big favor. Just don't ask what, because I'll only tell you when I feel the time is right. But I will tell you this. It will do you a very big favor, at least in my eyes, which could be deceiving you. Well, just thought I'd say you'll pay for lying to me. Jennifer."
All right. Interesting.
Well, it's a little threatening, right? It's veiled, but it's a little threatening. Rice later called Stephen to share the updated handwriting analysis results. The analyst concluded that based on the handwriting samples, she was leaning towards Tony as the person who wrote the letter found in Jennifer's room. Okay, I got to tell you, things are not looking good at this point for Tony.
I mean, we went from Ron and Margie to Tony.
To Carrie
in between.
In there, some in between, to now everything kind of pointing towards Tony's way. In 2022, Stephen learned that investigators obtained a warrant for Tony's DNA. The affidavit for the search warrant contained a summary of Charlie May's 2017 statements. There were some discrepancies from what he told the documentary team. Charlie May told the police Tony called him and asked how to get rid of evidence if he killed someone. Charlie said he would put the body in acid. Charlie claimed that Tony called him and said he killed his girlfriend. They had a fight over her getting pregnant. Jenny's parents were allegedly going to press rape charges. According to Charlie, Tony told him he stole acid in a barrel from a construction site and put the body in the barrel. Tony would never say what he did with it, but Charlie advised him there was a low-lying area near some railroad tracks near a local trailer park. Okay, so we are kind of winding our way back to a possible motive.
Yeah, pregnancy. And the parents pressing charges against him.
Yeah, and we did say, right, she was like 14 years old. He was a couple of years older. I don't know what the laws were there at that point, but she was pretty young. She was 14 years old. But what I also think is strange, Gibbs, is how some of this information kind of ties back to statements made by both Ron and Margie, right? Ron hypothesized that Jennifer fell and hit her head. Margie said that she could be on the railroad tracks.
Yeah.
So some of this stuff is just so strange all the way around. In the fall of 2022, Stephen met with prosecutor Nate Green, who informed him his parents were no longer suspects. Based on information presented in the documentary, it seems like Stephen and Margie are attempting to repair their relationship.
Well, that's good.
Yeah. I mean, anytime, two people can get back together, it's a good thing. I'm sure what they went through, the disappearance, maybe even the spotlight on them, contributed in some way to the marriage failing. In December 2022, Green contacted Stephen with the DNA results and informed him there were 4 different Y chromosome DNA samples found on the note when compared to Tony Tobler's and Charlie May's DNA. There was no match to 3 out of 4 samples, and the 4th was inconclusive. Ron Pandos's DNA was also not found on the letter.
Okay, that's throws a wrinkle in what some people thought who had wrote it.
Yeah, but there was, one sample that was inconclusive. Tony Tobler was interviewed earlier in the filming process, but declined to give a follow-up interview. He and Charlie May have never been charged in connection with Jennifer's disappearance. As of the time of this episode, her case remains open.
Yeah, but why would he want to talk after all this? Because, allegedly he's been kind of thrown into the mix of possibly having something to do with it.
And I would say more than thrown in the mix, I would say at a certain point, it seemed like authorities were considering him the number one suspect.
I think if he had any conversations with a decent attorney, they'd probably stop communicating about it. If you didn't do it, stop talking about it.
Well, maybe early on in the filming process, this stuff wasn't leaning towards him.
Yeah.
But later on, it was, and he said, you know what? I'm done.
I'm out of here.
I'm not talking anymore. At the time of her disappearance, Jennifer was 5'2". She weighed about 100 pounds. She had brown hair and hazel eyes and a mole on her left shoulder. She would be 53 years old today.
Wow.
So she is very close, or would be very close to my age.
Yeah.
The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children has published an aged progressed photo of Jennifer at age 45 on their website. So you can go out there and check that out. If you have any information about her disappearance, you can call James City County Police Department at 757-253-1800. So Gibbs, as we wrap up this episode, it's such an interesting one because there are so many people who, at least at one point in time, have been looked at, at the very least as a person of interest.
Sure, yeah.
And a lot of it has been based on things they've done, things they've said that, to be honest, don't seem to make a lot of sense. I mean, her parents have done and said things that, to me, make no sense. Now, police have come out and said they've basically ruled them out at this point.
But it makes you wonder why things were said the way they were.
Yeah. I mean, it's perplexing,
maybe
to say the least.
Maybe because they were under stress. I don't know.
It could be, but I mean, some of the stuff was just so specific and so eerie that it's hard to make sense of. And then, obviously you have Tony. And, in the beginning of the episode, it was kind of hard for me to see from the information we had then, kind of what his motive would have been. But when you find out that they were communicating, they were possibly, seeing each other in secret after the time that he got back with Corey, well, then a lot of different motives start to become possibilities. There's the letter that said, you lied to me and you're going to be very sorry. You know, I'm going to do something to you. What was that going to be? She was going to tell Corey that they were messing around. You can really see what a motive would be there.
And then you take that potential motive, pair it up with what Charlie May said about what Tony allegedly told him, and now you're going,
Well, and to me, that's the big thing. How truthful are the comments that Charlie May made? Because he made some to the film crew, but he also made some that were very similar to the police.
Yeah.
So if he's telling the truth, you would have to say that that's pretty damning stuff against Tony.
It would be. Yeah, it is.
But how do you determine that he's being truthful?
Well, it sure doesn't help that he decided not to say anything back in 1987 and waited all this time to bring it out.
Yeah, it doesn't help at all. I mean, it seems to me that right now the police are looking at Tony as, you know, maybe the number one person of interest based on the research and what we've talked about. But this could be a case where they're just not able to put enough together. You know, the statements made by Charlie May are not going to be enough to convict somebody of murder.
That's hearsay.
Yeah. I mean, that's just not going to do it. But it's possible that, you know, they could in the future uncover some evidence that would allow them to bring forward charges against someone, whether it's Tony or someone else. But you can see why so many people find this case interesting. And like I said before, if you haven't checked out the documentary, I highly suggest it because it's a deep dive into the case. It really is.
Give it a listen.
But that's it for our episode on the disappearance of Jennifer Pandos. We got some voicemails, Gibbs. You want to check those out?
Let's hear them.
Hello, Mike and Gibby. My name is Marina. I'm from Brazil. I want to say that I love your show, and I laughed a lot because you are so funny, and I understand everything you say. I think you have a great voice, Mike, and I love your beep. I always look for this sound when you're talking about old cases. And Gibby's wonderful. You guys are wonderful. I really love you both. And I was very, I was laughing so loud because you talked about Tom Cruise, that my kids came around and they don't understand English, and they would love to understand because they are always listening the podcast, but you know it's not good for them. They're young, but I really love your show. Thanks a lot. I've been listening for a few years now, and keep doing your good work. Take care e mantenha seus relógios funcionando. Beijo, tchau.
All right, all the way from Brazil. Appreciate it so much.
Love Brazilian listeners.
I just hope that her kids don't learn English from the show. From you.
Wait, I thought you meant because of what we're saying.
No.
Oh, you meant because of my quality English?
Yeah, because of your English.
Yeah, okay.
But we appreciate the voicemail very much.
We do, thank you.
Hey, Mike and Gibby, it's Joe from Chicago. How are you guys doing today? I was just curious. I just watched the new Netflix documentary about Arthur Lee Allen, the prime suspect in the Zodiac killings. And I was just curious if you guys had seen it and what your thoughts were on it. I found it pretty compelling, but I still don't know where I stand on if I think Allen is the guy or not. So, yeah, I'd be interested to hear your take. Love the show. Keep your head on a swivel. Keep your own time ticking.
Well, it's a great voicemail. I did watch the documentary, and of course I had to hit Morph Up because he's the Zodiac expert.
Yeah.
And he had watched it and he said it didn't change his opinion one bit.
No.
There is some compelling stuff in there, but, you know, again, is it all true? I don't know what these people would have to lie, what reason they would have to lie. But according to him, it didn't change his mind at all. He has never thought it was Arthur Lee Allen. He has a favorite suspect in mind. I forget who it is. He's told me a number of times, but the documentary is compelling if what everyone in the family is saying is true.
Now, more importantly, if you take that call right there and you isolate it down, you can hear the A train in the background. And I think our caller is where Sam Shepard was when they found him.
Okay. You got all of that as the voicemail was playing?
Yeah.
All right. You're a hell of a detective.
All right.
All right, buddy. That is it for another episode of True Crime All the Time Unsolved. So for Mike
and Gibby,
stay safe and keep your own time ticking.
Stream all the movies and shows you love for free on Pluto TV.
Say what now?
Showtime. That means drama is free with heart-wrenching stories from Love and Basketball, Power, and Greenleaf.
In this family, we live by the Spirit.
And laughter is free with gut-busting comedies like Key and Peele, The Neighborhood, Everybody Hates Chris, and Boomerang. Watch all the hits, all for free from all your favorite devices.
Oh my God, I love it!
Feel the free Pluto TV. Stream now, pay never.
Ready to make a real impact every day? Join the Active Day Home Care team and help clients maintain their independence in the comfort of their own homes. Make a difference in someone's life as you provide essential daily assistance and protect their health and happiness. Earn up to $20 an hour and enjoy additional perks like optional daily pay, 401k, paid time off, ongoing educational training, and more. Join a team that values care, compassion, and your professional growth. Visit activeday.com to apply.